It was the kind of moment you never think will happen to you. The kind of betrayal that feels like it's been building up for years, but you only notice it in that final, heart-shattering second. I'll never forget the way the fire crackled that night, how the warm light from the fire pit illuminated my family's faces, making everything look so perfect. My daughter, Lily, sat beside me, her face still flushed with excitement from her design competition. She was in that moment, as proud as I've ever seen her, showing her cousins the designs she'd been working on all summer. The scent of roasted marshmallows and grilled steaks filled the air. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening, a family gathering at my parents' lake house, just like we'd done every summer for years. My father was nearby, chatting with my brother, and my sister, Amanda, was of course right in the center of the conversation. Always the star of the show, the golden child. And then, as Lily showed her cousins her new laptop, the very laptop I had sacrificed everything for, Aiden made a joke. A cruel joke. He pointed to her MacBook Pro and asked, "Is this really yours?" His voice dripping with sarcasm. Must be nice to have a laptop like that when you don't even pay for it. I saw it in Lily's eyes before she could even react, this feeling of unease. It was the same feeling I'd seen in her whenever Amanda's kids made offhand remarks. The subtle kind of jealousy that gets under your skin, like a splinter you can't remove. But this time, it was different. This time, I wasn't going to let it slide. The tension in the air shifted, just enough that I could feel it in my bones. The tension between my daughter and my family. The kind of tension that has been there for years, unnoticed by everyone but me. And as the night went on, I realized how deep the cracks ran beneath our perfect family image. I couldn't remember the last time my parents actually saw Lily for who she was, a talented, hardworking teenager with dreams of her own. To them, she was always the background character. Not quite the golden child like Amanda's kids. Not quite the troublemaker either, but just in the background. In the moment, I thought it was just one of those things. A teenager's jealousy, sibling rivalry, maybe even a harmless joke. But that night, I realized something I'd been too blind to see before. My family had never truly seen Lily. And worse, they'd never seen me, not for who I really was. I'd spent years working 2 jobs to provide for Lily, sacrificing sleep, skipping meals, even taking on extra shifts during the holidays, all to give her a chance at something better, something I never had growing up. And the laptop, her dream laptop, was my way of showing her that all of my hard work, all of the endless sacrifices had been worth it. This was her future. This was her chance. But to my family, it was just another expensive toy, a symbol of something they could never have, but wouldn't dare admit. It's funny how, when you're in the middle of a storm, you don't notice the rain until it's too late. You don't notice how the wind is picking up, how the clouds are growing darker, until everything you thought was safe, everything you thought was perfect, suddenly begins to unravel. And for me, that unraveling started right there at the lake house. The fire in front of us continued to crackle, but something in me had shifted. I could see it in Lily's eyes. She was trying to hold it together, trying to smile and make the best of it, but she knew. She knew exactly what had just happened. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that I couldn't protect her from this. From them. From the family that had always treated us like outsiders. I could feel my chest tightening, my anger rising, my body practically shaking from the effort of keeping it all inside. I wasn't going to let it go this time. Not this time. Enough, I heard myself say, my voice sharp, cutting through the laughter and conversation. It wasn't just the laptop, it was everything. The way they ignored Lily's talent. The way they treated her like an afterthought. The way they'd always pitted us against each other, Amanda with her perfect life, her perfect kids, and me with my constant struggle to make ends meet. I stood up, my hands shaking with frustration. "You don't get it, do you?" I said, my voice low but fierce. The firelight danced in my eyes. This laptop wasn't just a gift, it wasn't just a thing. It was my life, my blood, my sweat. I've sacrificed everything for her to have a future. Lily's eyes were wide with shock, as if she hadn't seen me like this before. Her usual calm, collected mom was now standing in front of her, shaking with anger. My parents went quiet, exchanging uncomfortable glances. Even Amanda's smile faltered for a moment, though she quickly regained her composure. "I've spent years working 2 jobs to give her something you'll never understand," I continued. "And you, You laugh at it, you laugh at her, you think she doesn't deserve it, you think she's just some spoiled kid. The words spilled out, raw and unfiltered, like a dam breaking. And in that moment, I didn't care about the consequences. I didn't care about my sister's feelings or my parents' disappointment. All I cared about was that Lily finally knew. She finally saw me standing up for her. And I wouldn't take it back, no matter what happened next. But that was just the beginning, the tipping point. Because as I turned to leave the fire pit, Amanda's voice rang out, mocking, dismissive. You always were the dramatic one, Bessie, she said with a shrug. It's just a laptop. That was it. That moment, that one moment, everything in me broke. As I grabbed my daughter's hand and began walking away, I realized something that chilled me to my core. This wasn't just a family gathering. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a prank. This was the moment everything changed, for better or worse. And as I walked out of that circle, I knew things would never be the same. I couldn't sleep that night. Lily had barely spoken a word since I dragged her away from the fire pit. I could hear her quiet sobs muffled by the sound of the wind outside our room. She didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve any of it. But as I lay in the dark, I couldn't stop thinking about how my family had treated us over the years. It wasn't just tonight. This wasn't some isolated incident. No, this betrayal had been building up for years. The memory of my parents' house on the outskirts of Seattle was still fresh in my mind. It was always the same when we visited. Amanda would breeze in, dressed in the latest fashion, with her perfect husband and perfect kids. My mother would gush over her children, as if they were the only ones who mattered. And then there was me, Bessie, the hardworking, no-nonsense daughter who couldn't seem to get it right, no matter how hard I tried. I had always tried to be the good daughter, the one who didn't make waves, the one who worked hard to support her daughter. But it never seemed to matter. No matter how many hours I worked, no matter how much I sacrificed, I was never quite enough in their eyes. I remember one particular Christmas years ago, when Lily was just a little girl. Amanda had just bought her children the latest gaming consoles, the ones with all the bells and whistles. She flaunted them in front of everyone, and my parents couldn't stop talking about how lucky her kids were. I smiled and nodded, like I always did. But deep down, I was fuming. I didn't have the money for those kinds of gifts. All I could afford was a small stuffed bear for Lily, something she could cuddle with at night. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. My parents barely acknowledged the gift as if it wasn't even worth their time. But when Amanda handed her kids their presents, the room lit up. How thoughtful, Amanda, my mother said, her voice dripping with admiration. You really know how to spoil your kids. Lily was thrilled with her bear, of course. She was always so sweet, so understanding. But I could see the way her eyes darted to her cousin's extravagant gifts. I could see the confusion on her face, as if she didn't quite understand why she wasn't getting the same treatment. I didn't blame her. I had worked so hard to provide for her, but it never felt like enough. That night, as we all sat around the dinner table, I watched Amanda, the golden child, charm everyone with her stories. She told us about her latest vacation to the Bahamas, her expensive jewelry, her new kitchen remodel. My parents sat there, hanging on every word as if she were the queen of the world. I couldn't help but feel like an outsider. I had never been able to keep up with Amanda's success, and it seemed like the harder I tried, the more my family resented me for it. My mother would sometimes say, "You should really try to dress a bit more like Amanda. It's important to look presentable, Bessie." But no matter what I did, it was never enough. Amanda was always the one they compared me to, and I was always the one who fell short. I thought back to the many times Amanda had made offhand comments about my financial situation, the passive-aggressive remarks about my modest lifestyle, the way she would act surprised when I didn't have the latest gadgets or designer clothes. "Oh, Bessie," she would say with that superior smile of hers. "It must be so hard to make ends meet with just one income. I can't imagine how you manage." I would always smile and nod, pretending it didn't bother me, but deep down it hurt. I had always been the responsible one, the one who took care of everything. But my parents couldn't see that. All they saw was Amanda, with her perfect life and perfect children. Even at family gatherings, the imbalance was always clear. I'd bring my daughter Lily to these events, and we'd try to fit in, but it never felt like we were truly part of the family. Lily was always treated like the outsider, the poor relative who didn't quite fit in with the privileged world my sister and her family inhabited. My parents would offer up empty words of encouragement, but their actions spoke louder. When Lily turned 14, it was the same story. Her art teacher had contacted me to tell me how talented Lily was, how she had a future in graphic design. It was the first time I'd felt like my daughter was truly seen for who she was. She had a talent, a passion, something that made her special. But it wasn't enough, not in my parents' eyes. They didn't care about Lily's talent or her dreams. They cared about what Amanda's kids were doing, what Amanda was doing. They wanted their grandchildren to follow the path that had been laid out for them, a life of luxury and success, with no regard for the struggles Lily and I faced every day. And that's when I decided to make a change. When I found out about Lily's dream laptop, I knew I had to do whatever it took to give her the tools to succeed. I didn't care what my family thought. I didn't care if they laughed or criticized me. I was going to give Lily the future she deserved. But I never expected that this gift, this symbol of my love and sacrifice, would become the very thing that would tear our family apart. The next morning, everything felt different. The air outside was crisp and clean, but inside, the weight of what had happened the night before hung like a storm cloud, blocking out any trace of peace. Lily and I hadn't spoken much after the fireworks at the fire pit, but I could feel her eyes on me every time I passed by. She was waiting for me to tell her it was all okay, waiting for me to fix it like I always did. But I couldn't, not this time. I went about my morning routine, trying to act like everything was normal, but nothing felt normal. Every time I opened my eyes, I saw the image of Lily's face as she stood there, heartbroken, watching her laptop burn. I tried to push it away, to focus on what needed to be done, getting breakfast, making sure Lily ate, pretending like this was just another family weekend. But my thoughts kept returning to what had happened the night before. When we went downstairs to join the rest of the family, I could already sense the tension in the air. Amanda was sitting at the table, sipping her coffee, her expression unreadable. My parents were unusually quiet, avoiding eye contact with me. I could tell they knew something was coming. Lily, bless her heart, was still trying to be strong. She had her new, tattered sketchbook out in front of her, flipping through the pages like she was in a world of her own. But every so often, she'd glance at me, her eyes full of questions I didn't have answers to. I sat down at the table, my hands gripping the mug of coffee so tightly that my knuckles turned white. It felt like the air around us was thick, like something was about to break. "Good morning," my father said, his voice almost too chipper, as though he was trying to force normalcy into the room. But the words felt hollow. There was nothing normal about this. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I focused on my coffee, taking a long sip, trying to steady my nerves. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface. I had kept it in for so long, but now it was all coming to a head. Lily shifted uncomfortably in her seat beside me, her fingers tapping against the pages of her sketchbook, and for the first time in years, I saw the vulnerability in her that I had spent so much time protecting her from. She wasn't the confident, talented artist she had been yesterday. Today, she looked lost. "Amanda, can we talk?" I said, my voice calm but steady, a sharp edge lurking beneath the words. I didn't look at her as I spoke, but I knew she could hear the anger in my voice. The kind of anger you try to hide, but it leaks through in every word. Amanda raised an eyebrow but said nothing at first. She took another sip of her coffee, as if this was all just another inconvenience she'd have to deal with. "Sure, what's on your mind, Bessie?" I could feel my teeth clenching, but I forced myself to stay composed. "What exactly happened last night?" I asked, my words crisp, deliberate. "Do you think it was funny?" Amanda blinked, feigning innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but I could see the way her lips curled into a small, almost imperceptible smile. The kind of smile that let me know exactly what she was thinking. The kind of smile that told me she wasn't sorry. I wasn't having it, not anymore. I leaned forward, meeting her gaze, my voice dropping to a low, steady growl. "You think it's funny to destroy something that took me months of sacrifice to give my daughter. You think it's a joke, Amanda." My voice was barely above a whisper, but it felt like the walls of the house were closing in. Amanda's expression shifted just slightly. Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't place, but the moment passed quickly. It was just a laptop, she said, shrugging. You really need to calm down, it wasn't a big deal. I felt like I'd been slapped across the face. My hands balled into fists, and for a second I thought I might actually stand up and scream. But instead, I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay grounded. It wasn't just a laptop, Amanda. It was my daughter's future. You don't get to belittle that, not anymore. Lily's hand, which had been nervously flipping through the pages of her sketchbook, stilled. She was listening. She was hearing me finally speak up for her, finally stand up for both of us. I could see the tiny spark of hope in her eyes, the belief that maybe, just maybe, this time I wasn't going to back down. Amanda opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. Don't even try to justify it, I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife. You've been doing this for years, Amanda. You've been making Lily feel less than, making me feel like I'm not enough. And I've had enough. We're done with this charade. You've crossed a line. The room went quiet. Even my parents, who had been sitting silently until now, seemed to shrink back a little. I could see the shock on their faces, their disbelief. They had never seen me like this before, strong, unyielding. It was like they'd never known me at all. Amanda's eyes narrowed. You're overreacting, she said, her voice laced with that familiar condescension. It's just a thing, things can be replaced. No, I said, my voice trembling with the force of my words. It's not just a thing, it's everything. It's the hours I've worked to make sure Lily has the opportunities she deserves. It's the sacrifices I've made. And you, I pointed a finger at Amanda. You've never cared. You've never once seen her for who she really is. Lily looked up at me, her eyes wide with surprise. And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about the laptop anymore. It wasn't just about me standing up to my sister. It was about showing my daughter that her worth was not determined by anyone else. Not by Amanda, not by my parents. It was about giving her the strength to stand tall, no matter what. You want to know what's wrong, Amanda? I said, my voice stronger now, clearer. You've spent your life getting everything handed to you, while the rest of us have to fight for every scrap. You've never had to sacrifice. You've never had to struggle. And that's why you don't understand the value of what you destroyed. For a second, I thought Amanda might actually apologize. But she didn't. Instead, she crossed her arms and gave me a tight, fake smile. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, she said coldly. Lily, I said, turning to her, we're leaving, now. Lily blinked as if she hadn't expected this to happen so quickly. Mom, she started, but I could see the determination in her eyes. She stood up slowly, gathering her things. She didn't argue, not anymore. I turned to my parents, my voice cold as ice. You've got a lot of soul-searching to do. You don't get to pick and choose when you want to be family. You either stand by us or you stand against us. Your choice. Without waiting for a response, I grabbed Lily's hand and we walked out. I don't remember much of the drive back. The road stretched out before me, blurry and unremarkable, but my mind was spinning, consumed by everything that had happened in the last few hours. The heat of the argument still clung to my skin, and Lily, her quiet presence beside me, made everything feel heavier than it should have been. We left the lake house in the middle of the day, walking away from my family, but the sense of betrayal was still too fresh. I could still hear Amanda's mocking laughter in my head, my father's dismissive silence, my mother's feigned concern. It was as if I had never mattered to them, not as much as Amanda or her perfect life. And I couldn't let that go, not this time. Lily didn't say much during the drive. She sat with her arms crossed, her eyes staring out the window, and I could tell she was trying to process everything just like I was. I could feel her pain, her disbelief, but also, deep down, a flicker of something else. A strange, quiet pride. She had seen me stand up for her. She had seen me fight back. And for the first time, she knew that I wasn't going to let anyone walk all over us anymore. The tension was thick in the car, and the closer we got to home, the more I felt that something was off. When we reached our apartment building, I parked the car and sat for a moment, staring at the entrance. My mind was still reeling. I wanted to feel relieved, to feel like I had done something good, something empowering, but instead I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something darker. The anger still simmered beneath my skin. The frustration, the disappointment in my family was too much to ignore. I'll be okay, Mom, Lily said softly, breaking the silence. I know you did the right thing. I nodded but didn't speak. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. that this was only the beginning of something much bigger. But right now, all I wanted was to wrap Lily up in a hug, to hold her close and tell her that we would be okay, that we had each other and nothing else mattered. But before I could get out of the car, I heard a loud crash. It came from the direction of the building's entrance, loud enough to shake the air around us. Lily's eyes widened and she quickly unbuckled her seatbelt. What was that? I didn't answer. I was already out of the car, moving toward the entrance, my heart pounding. My instincts told me something was wrong, and I had to get inside now. The moment I stepped through the door, I froze. There, in the hallway of our building, was a man tall, broad-shouldered, with dark, wild eyes. He was standing over a shattered vase that had once belonged to me, a vase I'd had for years. It was one of the few things I had kept from my past, from my grandmother. The man looked at me with an unsettling grin, as though he had been waiting for me. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of confusion and fear. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to face me fully and my stomach dropped. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't anyone I recognized either, but something about him felt familiar, too familiar. Then I saw it. A piece of paper, clutched in his hand, was sticking out from beneath his jacket. The letters on it were unmistakable. The seal of the building management, a notice. "I'm here to collect," he said slowly, his voice rough, almost as if he was savoring the moment. I took a step back, my heart racing. Collect what? The man stepped closer, the distance between us shrinking with every word. "You're late with your rent. Haven't you received the notices?" I felt my breath catch in my throat. Late? No, I had paid this month, I had just managed to scrape together enough to make the payment. I remembered the check I'd mailed out, the small relief I'd felt that at least one thing in my life was stable. But now, here it was, crumbling before my eyes. "I paid," I said, my voice shaking. "I sent the check last week, it's in the system." The man's grin widened, but there was something cold in his eyes, something calculating. "I don't care about what's in the system," he said, taking another step toward me. "You didn't get it in on time, so now I'm here to take care of it." I looked over my shoulder at Lily, who stood frozen in the doorway of the car, her eyes wide with fear. My blood turned cold. This was not just about the rent. This man, this figure standing in front of me, was here to push me further into the corner. I tried to calm myself, but the weight of the situation hit me all at once. There was no getting away from this. The system, the rent, the mess, everything felt like it was collapsing on top of me. My family had already torn me apart, and now, this stranger was about to take what little stability we had left. "I don't have anything for you," I said, my voice tight. "Leave us alone. This is not how you do things." The man tilted his head, the smile never leaving his face. But his eyes told a different story. "You don't get it, do you? You're nothing but a number, Bessie, a name on a paper. If you're late, there's no grace. You get nothing. Now get out of the way." My body locked in place. I wanted to fight back. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shove him out the door and tell him to leave us the hell alone. But as I stood there, staring into his cold eyes, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just some misunderstanding. This wasn't just a random encounter. This man, this threat, was a culmination of everything I had fought for and everything I had lost. It was the final nail in the coffin. Lily had seen it too. She'd seen how scared I was. She had seen me lose everything, and that's when it hit me. I couldn't protect her forever, but I had to protect her now. With every ounce of strength, I stepped forward, my voice now firm. "Get out now." But instead of retreating, the man moved closer, his presence suffocating. Before I could say another word, the door behind us slammed open with a force that sent the entire hallway rattling. Someone stepped through, pushing the stranger aside. It was Jeff. And my breath caught in my throat. The air around me felt heavier, suffocating as Jeff stepped into the doorway. His presence was a shock, a jarring reminder of the tangled mess of family ties I could never quite untangle. The man who had entered our building, demanding rent, was now shoved back, stumbling slightly as Jeff planted himself between us. "Who the hell are you?" Jeff's voice was firm, sharp, as he looked the man in the eyes. His gaze was cold, calculating. It wasn't the voice I was used to hearing when he was at home, relaxed and distracted by work. No, this was something else. Just doing my job, the man said, eyes narrowed. She's late with her payment, and I'm here to collect. I stood frozen in place, watching the scene unfold, unsure of what to do next. Lily, still standing outside by the car, her hand trembling on the doorframe, was now the focus of my thoughts. She didn't deserve this chaos. She didn't deserve any of it. But then, as quickly as it had started, Jeff turned back to me. Let's get inside. We need to talk. Before I could respond, the man who had arrived to collect rent was already backing away, muttering under his breath. We'll be back, he said, still glancing back with an edge of warning. You can't hide from the truth forever. Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared down the hallway. I wasn't sure what shocked me more, the sudden appearance of Jeff or the man's cryptic words. The moment hung in the air, heavy and thick with tension. But before I could process what had just happened, Lily, wide-eyed and pale, finally moved inside. She barely made a sound as she walked past me, heading straight into the living room, still in shock. Mom, what's going on? Lily's voice was quiet, too quiet, as though the events of the past few hours had drained her of all emotion. It was the calm before the storm, the silence before everything came crashing down. I could hear Jeff's footsteps behind me as I moved toward Lily. His eyes met mine, and without needing to speak, I knew he understood the full weight of what had happened. We need to get to the hospital, Jeff said, his voice breaking the silence. I looked at him, confusion clouding my thoughts. The hospital, what, why? Lily, his voice faltered, his hand moving to his forehead, massaging his temples. I don't think you realize how bad this is. I glanced at Lily, still standing there, her back slightly hunched, clutching her arms tightly across her chest as though trying to hold herself together. Her face was pale, and her eyes were distant, glazed over. But it wasn't just the emotional shock. There was something else, something deeper. We're going, Jeff repeated. Now. I knew then that we had no choice. Whatever had just happened, it was more than just a confrontation. Something had shifted between us all, and this man's words, about not hiding from the truth, kept echoing in my mind. I rushed to grab my car keys, heart racing with each passing second. Lily didn't resist. She barely spoke as we made our way to the car. She got in without a word, and I couldn't help but notice the emptiness in her eyes, the stark absence of the spark she usually carried with her. The drive to the hospital felt like a blur. The weight of the morning's events hung over us like a dark cloud, but it wasn't just the emotional toll. It was the strange feeling that something was broken, more than just the laptop, more than the words exchanged between us. I kept thinking of what had happened the night before at the lake house. Once we arrived at the hospital, the sterile white hallways seemed almost like a safe space, distant from the turmoil we'd left behind. The hospital was quiet, almost too quiet. I could hear the soft murmur of nurses' voices as they moved past us, but all I could think about was getting Lily checked out. I needed to know she was okay. We were ushered into an exam room quickly. The doctor, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, asked Lily to sit on the examination table, gently reassuring her that everything would be fine. Let's just get some basic tests done, the doctor said, glancing at me. It's a good idea to have her checked out after what happened, just in case. Lily nodded numbly, her eyes never leaving the floor. I sat in the corner, trying not to show the weight of my anxiety. I kept telling myself that everything would be fine, but the unease in my gut wouldn't leave. It was like my body knew something I couldn't put into words. The doctor began the usual checks, asking Lily how she felt, whether she had any pain, any discomfort. She asked if Lily had been feeling sick, but Lily shook her head. There was nothing physically wrong with her, at least nothing she could feel. Then came the X-rays. Just a precaution, the doctor had said. Better safe than sorry. The wait felt like a lifetime. Every minute that ticked by in the small room felt like it was stretching into eternity. I didn't know how to fill the silence. My mind was racing, thinking of everything that had led us to this moment, wondering if there was a way to fix it, to undo the damage that had been done. But when the doctor finally returned with the results, I knew something was wrong. Her face was pale, her expression unreadable. Bessie, she began softly, her voice steady but with an underlying tension. I need to talk to you. I stood up immediately, my stomach twisting. What is it? Is Lily okay? The doctor motioned for me to sit, her hand resting gently on the back of my chair. Lily, she's physically fine for now, but the X-ray shows some bruising in her rib area, which is likely from stress. It's not life-threatening, but it's important we discuss her emotional well-being. You see, this kind of stress can have lasting effects. It's more than just physical, it's mental. I nodded, my heart sinking. Lily wasn't just hurt by the argument. The weight of the past weeks, the years of tension, was finally taking its toll. And Bessie, the doctor continued, her gaze soft but serious, you need to consider counseling. For both of you. I blinked, my breath catching. I don't know if we can, with everything going on. I trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. What was I supposed to say? The doctor gave a small, sympathetic smile. It's important, Bessie. It's about more than just what happened at the lake house. This is about the long-term effects of living under constant stress. Lily needs to know she's not alone in this, and so do you. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I could feel the weight of her words, the truth behind them. I had never really stopped to think about the emotional toll this had taken on Lily. I had been so focused on surviving, on doing what I thought was best for her, that I had overlooked how everything was affecting her on a deeper level. I'll do whatever it takes, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just about fixing Lily, it was about fixing us, our family. The drive back from the hospital was silent. Lily was sitting in the passenger seat, her eyes staring out the window, lost in thought. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, as if she were holding herself together, trying to keep the pieces from falling apart. I couldn't help but glance over at her every few moments, wanting to say something, anything, to make her feel better, but the words were stuck in my throat. The doctor's words echoed in my head. Lily needs to know she's not alone in this. You need to consider counseling. I had always prided myself on being strong, on being the one who took care of everything. I had always been the one who put Lily's needs first, always pushed aside my own pain and fears to make sure she was okay. But now, I realized how little I had done to make sure she was emotionally okay. How much I had shielded her from the truth, from the reality of our situation. The truth hit me hard. This wasn't just about the lake house incident or the laptop. It was about everything that had come before it. The way I had allowed my family to treat us, my daughter and me, as if we didn't matter. The way I had buried my resentment, swallowed my hurt, all to keep the peace. I had put up with it for too long. The car hummed quietly as we drove through the streets of our neighborhood. I could see the familiar sights, the grocery store where I'd picked up food after work, the little park where Lily used to play when she was younger, the old diner where I'd spent hours reading, trying to find solace in a cup of coffee after the most exhausting days. Everything that used to feel like home now felt foreign, a place I didn't recognize. When we pulled into the parking lot, I turned the engine off and sat there for a moment. I didn't want to go inside. I didn't want to face the reality of our apartment, where we had to pretend that everything was okay when it was. But I knew I had no choice. Lily finally spoke. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "Mom, what now?" I looked over at her. There was a sense of emptiness in her eyes. I could see the hurt there, the weight of everything that had happened. But there was something else too, something stronger, deeper. She was learning to face the truth. She was learning to stand up for herself, and for that, I was proud of her. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice low. "I mean," she hesitated, her fingers gripping the seatbelt. "What happens now with Grandma and Grandpa? And Amanda, do we go back there?" The question hit me harder than I expected. Do we go back? What would that even look like? After everything that had happened? After I had finally stood up to them? After I had spoken the words that had been building up for years? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "No, Lily," I said, my voice firm. "We don't go back, not until things change, until they understand what we've been through, until they learn to respect us for who we are, not just as family members they can push around." Lily's eyes flickered with something, a mix of relief and uncertainty. It was clear she still didn't fully understand the weight of everything. She was still processing, still trying to make sense of the storm that had erupted in our lives. But she didn't argue. "Okay," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. We stepped out of the car and made our way upstairs. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, as if it had been holding its breath, waiting for us to return. The moment we stepped inside, I saw the familiar shadows in the corners of the rooms. I could almost feel the weight of the silence pressing down on me. Lily went straight to her room without saying another word. I watched her walk away, her small form disappearing into the hallway, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. Not in a bad way, but in a way that felt like we had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And maybe that was a good thing. Maybe we needed to draw that line, to protect ourselves from a family that had never fully understood us. I stood in the living room, staring at the empty space. The small apartment was too quiet now. There were no more distractions, no more excuses. Everything that had been building up in my heart over the years, every hurt, every frustration, every unspoken word, was now demanding to be acknowledged. And that's when I heard a knock on the door. I froze. Who could that be? No one ever knocked on our door, not unless they needed something, not unless it was someone from the building, someone like the rent collector, or someone I'd been avoiding. I opened the door slowly, dreading what I might find, but when I saw who it was, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was my mother. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale. She looked different, like she had been crying for hours, maybe even days. I had never seen her like this, not once in all the years I had known her. She wasn't the woman who stood by Amanda's side, who praised her for her success while looking down on me. This woman, standing in front of me now, was broken. She looked small, defeated. "Bessie," she said softly, her voice cracking, "can we talk?" I wasn't sure what to do. I wanted to slam the door in her face, to walk away, to pretend none of this was happening. But something in me stopped. Maybe it was the years of emotional baggage I'd carried, maybe it was the guilt of not standing up to her sooner, but I couldn't turn her away. I stepped aside, letting her in. She looked at the floor, not meeting my eyes. The silence between us was deafening. "Sit down," I said, my voice cold but steady. She hesitated, but then she did. Her hands trembled as she folded them in her lap. I'm sorry, Bessie," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been wrong, I've been so wrong, and I know it." I raised an eyebrow, unsure of what to say. This was the last thing I expected to hear. "Wrong about what?" I asked, my voice steady. She sighed deeply, wiping at her eyes. I've never truly seen you, I've never truly seen Lily. All these years I've stood by and watched as Amanda got everything she wanted, and you were always there doing your best, but I didn't see it. I didn't appreciate it. And now I can see how much I've hurt you. How much I've hurt both of you." I could feel the weight of her words, but part of me wanted to shut her out, to close the door and forget she was even standing here. But something in me, something deep, buried beneath all the anger, wanted to hear her say it. "I've always been afraid to face the truth," my mother continued, her voice trembling. "But I see now, I see the sacrifices you've made. I see how much you've done for Lily, and I was blind. I've hurt you both, and I need you to know, I'm sorry." For a long moment, I just stared at her. It wasn't what I expected, not at all. I'd spent my whole life wanting her to see me, to acknowledge me, to love me like she loved Amanda. And now she was here, apologizing. But I didn't know what to do with it. "I'm sorry too," I finally said, my voice low. "But words aren't enough, Mom, they never were." She nodded, her eyes full of sorrow. I know, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." The days following my mother's unexpected visit were strange. It felt like the ground beneath me had shifted, but I couldn't quite find my footing. Part of me was relieved that she had apologized, finally admitted the truth, even if it was long overdue. But another part of me, a stronger part, couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I had spent my entire life trying to prove my worth to her, and now, here she was, offering words that felt too little, too late. Lily and I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to process everything. Lily was quieter than usual, her once bright eyes now clouded with uncertainty. She'd been hurt, and no matter how much I tried to shield her, I knew it would take time for her to heal. In the weeks that followed, I made it a point to stick to what the doctor had suggested. We started therapy. It wasn't easy, hell, nothing in our lives ever was, but for the first time I felt like I was doing the right thing. We talked through the anger, the sadness, and the guilt. We talked about the past, about everything that had led us here. And slowly, Lily started to open up. Slowly, we started to rebuild. The therapy sessions weren't a magic fix, but they helped. They gave us both a space to feel heard, to feel understood. And they gave me the strength to confront the truth, to accept that the people I had once hoped would change, my parents, my sister, were not going to change unless they were willing to. And maybe, just maybe, that was okay. But not everything was going to be okay right away. Not by a long shot. I received a call from Jeff a few days after our first therapy session. His voice was different when he spoke to me. Softer, more serious. "Bessie," he began, "I wanted to follow up. About everything." "About what?" I asked, confused. "Everything's a mess. I'm not sure what more you can do." "I've been thinking," Jeff said, his voice slow and measured. "I need to be more involved. I've spent so much time focusing on my work that I missed what was right in front of me. You and Lily, I've been part of the problem too." I wasn't sure what to say. His words made me feel uncomfortable. Not because I didn't believe him, but because it was the first time he had ever fully acknowledged the tension that had existed in our relationship. The silent distance that had always been between us, the unspoken judgment of his family, and my struggle to balance everything. I had never asked him to step in. I had always carried the weight on my shoulders. "I'm not asking for more than you can give, Jeff," I said quietly. "But we need to be a team. For Lily's sake, we have to be." "I know, and that's why I want us to move forward. I've set up a meeting with my lawyer and a mediator. We'll work on some boundaries, some real changes. It's time to fix this." I wasn't sure if this was the moment of change I had been waiting for, or if it was just another empty promise. But I agreed to meet with him and the mediator, just as long as it was clear we weren't going to go back to the way things were. A week later, we sat down together. Jeff and I, along with a mediator who was a calm, neutral third party. My mother and Amanda, however, had refused to participate. It was clear that they weren't ready for the kind of honesty and accountability that was necessary. They had their own version of events, one that didn't align with mine or Lily's, and I was done fighting for their approval. Lily and I had learned to stand up for ourselves. And as we sat there in that room, with the mediator guiding us through the conversation, I realized something. I was done with trying to prove my worth. I was done with fighting for a seat at the table that didn't want me. The truth was, I didn't need them anymore. "We need to set clear boundaries," I said, my voice steady as I looked at Jeff. "With my family, with your family, with everyone. We can't keep living like this, hiding behind pleasantries and pretending things are okay when they're not." Jeff nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and resolve. "I agree. I've let this go on for too long, and I won't let it happen again. I'm here, Bessie. I'm here for both of you." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the fairy tale ending I had always imagined, but it was something real, something that could grow. As we left the mediation session, I felt lighter. Not because everything had been fixed, but because I had taken the first step towards something better. Lily, sitting beside me in the car, was quiet for a moment. I could see her thinking, her brows furrowed as she stared out the window. Then, without warning, she turned to me and smiled. A small, shy smile, but a smile nonetheless. "Mom, I'm proud of you," she said. Her voice was soft, almost like she was testing the words out, seeing if they felt right. I blinked, surprised by the sudden flood of emotion that rushed through me. "Proud of me?" "Yeah," she said, her smile growing just a little. "You're not just standing up for me, you're standing up for yourself. You're stronger than I realized." I felt my throat tighten, the weight of her words sinking in. I had always been the protector, the one who carried the burden of our lives. But now Lily saw me, not just as her mother, but as a woman who had finally found her voice. Finally, after all these years, I had learned to stand tall in my own right. "We're going to be okay, Mom," she added, her voice filled with a quiet certainty. "We don't need them to be whole, we have each other." And in that moment, I knew she was right. For the first time in my life, I didn't need the approval of anyone else. I didn't need to be seen by people who had never truly seen me for who I was. I had myself. I had Lily, and that was enough. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more challenges, more pain, more healing to be done. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew that no matter what came our way, we would face it together. I looked at Lily and smiled, a tear slipping down my cheek. "Yeah, kiddo, we're going to be okay."